Hey there, Infiniti Fletch here, and today I'm going to be installing a pretty cool new upgrade to my 2015 Infiniti Q70, and that is a complete screen replacement from a company called CarpuTech. So I found this thing, and if you are like me and you have a Q70, or if you are looking at Q70s, if you're here because you're a Q70 person, you know that there is no aftermarket support for these cars. So I was really excited to find this thing because it essentially replaces your entire head unit and claims to retain the stock functionality of the vehicle. So today I'm going to take the chance. I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to install this thing. I'm going to show you guys how it works. I'm going to give you my real opinions and thoughts on it. When we're done, the install doesn't look too terrible, but there is a little bit that needs to be done. So I'm going to break this video up into a few sections. I'm going to unbox this thing first just to show you what all this comes with. Then I'm going to show you step by step the install process. And then at the end, I'm going to show you the actual end results and give you my thoughts on this unit. So again, if you are looking for a way to update your Q70, to get rid of just the Bluetooth only connection, to get to CarPlay, to get your maps on the screen, to get a bigger, more up-to-date screen, this could be a good option for you. But let's dive into the CarpuTech replacement head unit. All right, guys, so let's start by just unboxing this thing. Now, I've already looked at it, so it does look really nice. So they package it really well. It came really fast. One interesting sort of thing, though, is when it arrived, it came via FedEx. And I did get an email from FedEx that said I owed like $18 in like tariffs, taxes, and fees. I went ahead and paid that, but just FYI, it kind of sounds like I reached out to them and they said, oh, it depends on the carrier and all this stuff. If it's USPS, sometimes they don't charge that. But just an FYI, if you get that, it felt weird at first, but after reaching out, it sounds like it's legitimate. But sometimes, depending on how they ship it, you might have to pay a couple bucks in like fees for the company shipping it. But so now here is the actual head unit itself. Now, obviously, as you can see, I think our screen's like a 6 or 7 inch screen. This thing's like 10 inches long. So it's gonna fill your entire dash. This thing is all touchscreen. It's got CarPlay. It's got all the features that you would look for in a modern head unit. And it's all wrapped up into this nice little replacement head unit. So again, this is just going to click right in there. You are going to repurpose your vents and your center analog clock there. But aside from that, this just replaces that whole entire screen. Then you get some instructions, and I've read through these a couple times, and they do have a video that they have a QR code on the last page here that you can scan. So you can pause this here if you want to scan that and watch that video. They actually have step-by-step instructions, and it's pretty comprehensive. Like, it actually looks pretty good. Now, when I get into the wiring part is where we're going to see, because as you can see down here, there's a lot of stuff, right? So there are a lot of harnesses, but what I'm kind of thinking is it seems like it's all just kind of one-to-one, right? Like in the instructions, I think they say that when you get the main head unit out, these two plug into the main sort of head unit, then these go into the stereo, right? This one is a little bit weird to me. There's this USB aux cable that apparently goes through your center console and then into your stock USB inside of your center armrest. I'm not sure quite why, but it does have like an audio like 3.5 millimeter jack on it. Then you do get this this appears to be like a GPS type of antenna. So I'm guessing we're gonna have to mount that somewhere. I'm gonna try and find a place to, get that discreetly out of the way so I don't have this giant thing mounted on my dash. And then there also appears to be this, which looks like a microphone to me as well. So again, I'm not 100% sure what that's for, but we're gonna find out when we get into it. Then you've got some other little miscellaneous things that I guess must replicate the stock functionality, LVDS, whatever that is. So again, we're gonna see what happens here, right? But it doesn't look crazy. Like, it doesn't look really weird. This is for your rear backup camera, so I believe it just you plug a harness from your vehicle into this, and then this turns it into a video signal that goes into the new head unit. So that makes sense to me. Again, pretty straightforward stuff. If you've done stereo stuff before, if you're old school like me and you did Pioneer Kenwood stuff in the old days, this is not terribly more advanced than that. And actually, the fact that they've got it all broken up into harnesses kind of makes it a little bit easier, if you're asking me. So now that I've shown you everything that comes in the box, let's get into tearing down the interior so that we can start to install this thing. So again, they give you these really nice instructions, and they're actually not bad. So what you're going to do is you're going to start by removing this sort of center piece down here. So underneath the DVD player, there's a center trim piece, and that has to come out. And then there are a couple screws behind that that we're going to pull that are going to allow us to take the side pieces off here. And then we're going to also take off the shift knob, because then that will give us access to this to be able to get the DVD player and that sort of thing out. DVD player cover comes out, top part comes out, this part comes out. We remove the vents, the clock, we put those in the new head unit. Then we run something under the center console here and into the center that goes into your stock USB. like I mentioned, and then that's pretty much it. So again, not crazy, but so you are going to want some sort of a trim tool. If you don't have one of these, I'll put a link in the description below to, like, you can get kits of these for under 20 bucks. And I reuse them all the time. And sometimes they come with other things too. So if you've installed other stereos or lighting kits or anything like that, you'll often get these too. But again, I'll put a link in the description below. But so let's sort of start by getting this piece out back here. And this can be a little bit tricky because you kind of have to go in through the sides. The good thing about the trim tools, though, is that they are plastic and they're designed to not really scratch up your stuff. Now, in their video that they've got, they kind of show them coming in from the top here under this CD player and kind of popping it out that way. I will say, if you're doing this, it does feel not great. Okay, but so on the right corner right there, I just kind of got my trim tool in and popped it out, and it came straight out. So I would recommend going in from like the sides, not from the middle. And then there's clips on each side. So there's one down there and then there's one over here. So I'm going to kind of come back over here and try and do the same thing. And the shift knob does kind of get in the way a little bit, but... So see, I'm putting pressure on the middle there. So what I did was I put pressure on the middle and then put the pry tool over to the left and popped it out. And then that just makes it so that it pulls this tab straight out instead of prying on it that way. You don't want to pry on it from the middle because it's going to break. So put a little bit of forward pressure on the middle of that and then pop this out with the trim tool and that comes right out. I'm going to keep all these trim pieces on the floorboard over here so I don't lose anything. All right, so just so you can see here what we're dealing with, I brought a light in here to try and help illuminate it a little bit better. But so there is going to be a Phillips head screw right back in there. So there's one right back in there too. So there's either side of that, there is a screw. Once we undo those, that actually seems to hold these side pieces in, these leather sort of knee pad pieces on the side here. So we're going to undo those two screws, and then we're going to use a trim tool to pop this whole thing off. So it's kind of hard to see here in the dark, but this whole piece on both sides is going to pop off next. And as you may have just seen right there, that last screw, I couldn't quite get my finger on it to pull it out like I did on the right side. And it immediately, even though my screwdriver is magnetic, it fell straight down into the center console. Now I did hear it kind of hit over here on the side. So I think when we take this piece off, we'll be able to find it, but you want to be real careful with that. Lesson learned. Okay, but before we can remove those trim tools, it is telling me to remove the gear shifter. One thing is, once we get really into this, you don't want to be turning the car on and off, because once you start to unplug stuff, it could cause like an error to pop up on your screen. But for right now, especially because I am running an aftermarket Q50 shift knob, which is a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, I kind of may not be able to get down into here. We'll see. Let me see if I can pop this. There's a little retaining clip right on there that you can see that we need to pop out. And then that should allow us to remove the shift knob. And then once we do that, then we'll actually be able to access, you know, the DVD player and this top aircon control section to pull that out. So let's get this retaining clip out with a flat head screwdriver. We'll just sort of pop this thing out. If you are having trouble getting to it, as you can see here, it's really tight, right? Like it's up against this like boot ring is up against the surround. You could, you know, just turn your car on and then slide this thing down and push it over into manumatic mode, which is maybe what I'm going to have to do to get this thing off, but we'll see. See, when you put it back into manumatic mode, you get a lot more room to get that boot out of the way. But you do want to be careful because, obviously, putting your car in a gear, it will roll and stuff. So just don't be moving the car around, or make sure you're not right next to something you're going to hit. Okay, so I did find these little tiny needle nose pliers. I'm going to try and just give that a shot. There we go. Okay, so that works great. Little pair of needle nose pliers. Just grab that clip out. Make sure you don't lose it. I'm going to put it in my cup holder. And then that should allow us to just push the button and pop that right off of there. Now make sure that you're in park, and then make sure that you shut your car off. Engage my e-brake too. Now that I turned the car on and woke it up, it has made it annoyingly angry at me, and it's beeping, so sorry for that. But now we want to get these side pieces off, and these are just using a bunch of clips in here. So kind of got my trim tool back behind it, and then I'm pulling away from the center console towards me So the way that these clips work, let me show you here on the back, is all of these along the edge here pull straight out. So you pull these 6 out, and then once you're about the middle ways out, then these insert into the dash. So you actually want to pull this away from that. Now we're going to go do the same thing on the other side. All right, so same thing on the passenger side over here. I'm kind of get my trim tool back behind there. Those 6 things pop out, and then that comes straight out of the dash, just like that. So then in the instructions, it does say next, you'll notice there's these 2 Phillips head screws in here. We're going to remove those. Those exist on both sides, so we're going to do the same thing on both sides. Make sure you don't lose them. So I'm going to put a finger on there so that as it comes out, I can kind of squeeze it to the screwdriver and then put those in my cup holder. And we're going to go back around to the other side and do the same thing. There's that screw that I accidentally dropped earlier, so we're going to keep that. It was kind of down behind my carpet there. So next it says that we need to remove this little change holder piece of trim here. It says to use a trim tool. I can kind of feel it. Let's get this so we can close it here. Okay, we are going to use a trim tool. Well, there goes my change, but you pry up from the bottom. Okay, there we go. So that has 2 clips in it, as you can see there. And those go straight down into your sort of center console. So you pop those up so that you can get access back in here to run, presumably, that USB cable. So now at this point it says we're going to remove the CD panel. There's going to be a couple of screws behind there. Then there's more screws behind this. So yeah, we're just removing all these sections now. Remove the CD panel with a pry tool, it says. So there is sort of a lip on the bottom of this thing. So I'm just kind of pulling on that first. And that's getting me some leeway here to get my trim tool inside. And then I'm sort of popping it from the top out. Just be careful that you don't mess up the surrounding dash. And these are going back in too. So now we've got a similar problem here where it's kind of hung up. So I'm going to put that pressure on the middle, and I'm going to get my pry tool in there, and I'm just going to pop it out. So now there is a wiring harness here, so we want to be aware of that. I'm assuming that's one that we're going to plug in from the new head unit. There is a little switch that you can push right in there. Okay, you can already see it's starting to loosen up. There we go. So now we've got that panel off. Now you can see that we've removed that center stack there. There is another screw there and another screw over there. And we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to remove those. That's going to allow us to take this next section off, and we'll keep going up. Again, being very careful to retain all these extra screws and not to drop them down into your center console like I did earlier. One thing that I will say that's kind of nice, and I mean, I love Nissan and I'm pretty biased, but they've also done some dumb stuff before, and there's been things that are problematic or a pain in the butt, but like the way that this all works, I mean, it's just sort of stacked on top of each other. Like this is all the CD player in here, right? This is the actual mechanics of it, but then just having the buttons on top is really nice because it just makes it way easier to access all this stuff to get into here. I mean, you're essentially just pulling, despite the complexity of all these buttons, it just pops right straight off, and it's really just attached via one harness that controls the whole thing. So it's actually pretty smart, pretty nice. All right, so once we remove those screws, then we should be able to remove this next panel. So now we're gonna try to just remove this. Kind of a similar thing to what I did before, where I'm just pulling out from it with my hands. I didn't even have to use a trim tool. Now back behind here, you can probably see there are a couple of harnesses going to this, same as the last time. We're gonna wanna disconnect those. Now the cords on these are not super long, and you don't want to put a ton of pressure on them, but it helps to have like a flathead screwdriver or like a tiny trim tool like I'm using here, just to be able to compress those harness locks, I guess you could call them. What I've actually found is lifting the whole thing up like this and going in through the bottom is the easiest way, because then you can see here's the little buttons that you need to compress to actually remove this thing. So I'm going to put my trim tool on it just like that, and then I'm just going to kind of pull down with my hands. So compress this little button in here and then just pull straight down, and then you're free. So now we've got several harnesses here, again, all of which are going to go likely into our new head unit. Okay, so just keep in mind this was like this, with this one going into the top part and this one going into the bottom. So presumably this is going to go back that same way. So now that we've got those harnesses loose there, we've got a screw here, 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 and here. So it looks like there's 5 screws all the way across, all Phillips heads, all the same size as what we've been doing. So we're just going to keep working our way down. So now one thing that they kind of don't explicitly show in the instructions is, I think we have to remove this entire center section here, because they show removing a couple of screws from below the CD player, and you can't really get to it with this stuff in here. So this is perfectly made by Nissan to kind of come around this, but I just got to figure out how to get this out of here. And we did unscrew it, so oh yeah, there we go. So I'm just pulling straight up on it, and it is coming now. You've got your heated seats, you've got your sports button here, so like there are some things plugged into the bottom here that you want to be aware of. So I'm just going to kind of turn it, is my thinking here, if I can. And looking down in there, this stuff is kind of tied together, so I don't know how much room I'm going to have. Okay, so but I can sort of get it turned around the gear stick. So I'm just leaving everything plugged in, and I'm just turning it so that it's sort of sideways so that I can get into here. But then you'll see, so here's the gear shift, center console, everything's still plugged in, just turned sideways. And then back in there, if you can see this, it's kind of dark, there is a screw back there, and there's another one over here on this side. Those actually hold this whole DVD player in here, or CD player in there. So I do have to pull those out, and then this is going to come out, then this, we're going to move up. So just trying to get some light in here for you. So you can see under the CD player, there is a screw there, and then there's one over here. So we're going to remove those quick. As you can see, I've got the CD player loose. So I took out those 2 bottom screws, the ones that we took out before up here. So there were these 3 across here, and then the 2 kind of in the back. The 2 in the back were what held that in. So now I've got this out. Let me take my shift knob back off there. And there's a whole bunch of harnesses back here, as you may or may not be able to see. Let me move the light over here. So there's a big one here, a big one there, a couple smaller ones there, and then there's like that pink one down below, some other ones down below. This one seems to be the bulk of the harnesses. So we're just going to start to unplug these, again, using my slim little tool here to help with depressing these buttons. And there's just so many. But I think all these are going to go into that new head unit, so it shouldn't actually be too bad. Because everything is just going to be replugged into something else, it shouldn't be too scary. Okay. Oh, and then there's more. So there are more little ones over here. You just kind of got to watch. They're all, it is interesting how they make these things always different, right? Like they always seem to latch a different way, which I get. Maybe that's just the easiest way for them to put it together when they're building this car new, but if you're ever taking it apart, it's kind of a hassle to have to learn the different ways that these things all disconnect. But there we go. We have got it. The CD player is totally disconnected. I'm going to set this in the back. Okay, so as you can see, we've got a lot of stuff going on in here, which is fine. But so now the CD player is out. I think hypothetically, because we've got all this apart here, this ought to pop out here. Okay, this is separate from that surround piece. So I'm just kind of pulling out from around the screen here. Now I did see in their video, they use a trim tool up here to kind of separate this top part. There we go. So as you saw, that just kind of pulled right out. All right, there we go. So we do have a harness in the back of the clock here that provides power, I'm sure, to that. So let's pop that out, and now we're separate. So then they do say that we need to remove, you know, our air con vents here and then our clock, because that's going to go into the new unit. There are 4 Phillips head screws around the clock, so that looks pretty easy. The vents may be tied into that clock. So let's remove the clock first, and then we'll see what happens after that. So again, all Phillips heads here. These ones are smaller, so you want to keep track of these separate from the other big ones we've been taking out of everything else. I mean, so far pretty easy though, honestly. I mean, just following instructions, there's nothing's been crazy difficult. I haven't broken anything or snapped anything. The harnesses surprisingly came out pretty easily. Like so far so good. I say and jinx myself early, but we're gonna find out towards the end how easy these harnesses and stuff are. So now that's our clock. So our nice little clock is popping out. Now these vents, let's see how these work here. Kind of just feels like they're kind of sandwiched in there. I mean, obviously you've got your knobs here too that have to come with them. And looking at this though, I do see there's these like tabs on the bottom. So like this side, they're kind of popping out already. I got this kind of loose at the bottom. I imagine it's probably similar at the top. Yep. Okay, so I think I see. There are these little, can you guys see this here? So like here, there are these little tabs that basically have little notches in them, and then there's a little clip that pushes through. So you kind of just have to, yep, push them down. So as you can see here in the light, there's these tabs here, and then these little pins that kind of go into those tabs. You just slide it in and they kind of lock in place. So get them out. All that I'm doing is I'm just kind of pushing down on the tabs. So maybe take like a trim tool here, pop those tabs out. It's a little tricky because you kind of have to do it. So it's easier just to kind of pull down on the bottom part of the mount. And then the top can be a little tricky, but there you go. Just kind of pull it away and it just pops right out of there. So we're gonna get rid of the old fascia. We've got our vents and our clock over there. Now, next thing it says in the instructions are to use your good old Phillips, and we're gonna pull this one screw right back there that's holding the screen in place. So we're getting close to being disassembled here. I mean, you can see the screen, like the state of it is just not great. Like it's just gross, and like people have tried to use cleaner on it, probably myself included. But so then once that's done, then this should come out. So I'm going to pull this out. I imagine there's going to be something obviously plugged into the back of it. So we've got to find this harness here. Okay, yep, there's a couple harnesses in here. There's a little gray one. Need my little trim tool here for this next one. So those two harnesses come out of the back of that. Okay, running out of room to set things here. Okay, so at this point we are ready. We've got the monitor out. We've removed our air vents and clock. We're ready to grab the new unit, put the air vents into it and the clock into the Android screen, and then we're going to start hooking up harnesses, it looks like. I'm just going to use the box that it came in to do this first part. Set this thing up here on top of the foam so it's protected. We're going to take our clock. It should fit right in here. Now the nice thing is they've got these little tabs on this too that kind of hold it in place. So that's cool. And then we're just going to use our 4 screws and our screwdriver. Or let's take a look at it just to check it. Yeah, it looks really nice. Perfect. So that fits great. Now, probably should have kept track of which one's which, although they do seem to be marked left hand, right hand. You can kind of see from the angle too, this seems to be right. So then these ought to just slide down into these same sort of tabs, up, center, right hand. Okay, I think I had them backwards. So you'll know pretty quick if you've got them on right or wrong. There we go. So when that clicks and you see all these tabs go in, then you know that you're in good shape. So the one that says up, center, left hand means that that's the top side there. And then it's actually going to go, well, because this is reversed, right? So yeah, this would be the left side looking at it in reverse. So that's why. Yeah, then that thing's just going to click right down in there. Make sure that your top is clicked because mine is not yet. There we go. So now those are popped in. We got all of our aircon controls in there. We've got our clock in there. Everything looks to be working. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm gonna take this foam piece. I'm just doing this on the hood of the car here, but carefully gonna sort of set this here so it doesn't get scratched up. So now we need to find the rear view adapter cable and plug that into the original screen thing, which I'm guessing it's this because this has that cord. Original rear view adapter cable. So see, it says it right there on the thing. It says original rear view adapter cable. So this is what we're going to plug in to the harness that came out of this original display piece. I'm going to put it on here the right way. Okay. So we've got this big, massive bunch of cords here, sort of the main harness. And it appears to me, it kind of looks like this side here may be the stock connections, and then these may be the ones that go into the head unit, because these are all marked as like power cable, blah, 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 blah. And these are also all male. So I'm guessing, Well, these are all male too. Well, some of them aren't. So in the instructions, it says, connect the power harness and LVDS cable to the original car wiring harness. Again, because they're all different, I'm guessing that I can only plug this in one way. There's also these two that are female and appear to sort of match these two right here. They're like these main harnesses coming out of the dash. So let's try that and see what happens. This one to me looks like it matches this. And it does, and that clicked, so that's a good sign. And we've got this other sort of female one here that appears to match the one underneath of it. And that clicked, so that's good. USB audio box, USB aux. So I'm guessing that this is the USB aux box here. And then, of course, in here you do have a USB, which I don't use, so that's fine. So I'm going to plug that in there. And these are just USB cords that I'm using to charge things, but then it shows this looping up and over into the center console here. Now here's the thing that's a little sketchy is, so that's that. Then we've just got this connect all the wiring harnesses to the Android display screen, right? And then it's done. So it seems to me there's a lot more left to do in here. So we're gonna have to figure this stuff out. Which is why I'm making this video, right? Because I figured it could not be as easy as it appeared in those pictures. So we've still got all this stuff here, and I can't imagine we're just gonna ignore that, right? And then we've got this harness up here. We've got this little guy up here. So let's start trying to piece this together. Yeah, so these replace this. This connects this, so then that allows it to connect to the head unit, right? But then all this stuff is just going to go back into the CD player. All right, guys, so I just wanted to, I kind of got everything plugged back into the CD player here, and I just wanted to walk you through this because I know for me, this has been the most challenging part of this whole thing, and I want you guys to get value out of this video so that it helps you, because I hate having to figure all this stuff out, but I figure it out once, share it with you guys, and then you don't have to go through the same struggles, right? So from the box for the CarpuTech came this thing that plugs into this sort of top thing that came from your monitor, right? And then that goes to this yellow thing, which then goes into the main harness. So this main harness has a female yellow, video cable. This is the male version up here coming out of the adapter, essentially, that comes out of your screen. So that, what I think that is that's going to take the video stream from your car and it's going to transmit it into the new head unit. So now this again is the main harness here. What we've done though is you'll see there is this section here with this, like fuse box looking thing on it. This plugs into your stock wires, and then those two, so this is coming out of the harness for the new one, go here and then also down here. So these two come out of your new harness and essentially sort of piggyback off of the stock stuff. So the stock stuff is plugged in right back there into the female versions of these. Again, they can only be plugged in one way. So you just got to kind of test them, look at them and see what size, if they look similar. You plug in two of these big harnesses that look just like these basically into the female versions of these, and then you plug this from your new harness into these two slots here. Then you're going to plug everything else back in. And I just wanted to kind of show you this so you can pause this, you can take your time here. You got this big long white one, you've got this little gray one. One thing that's a little confusing is this one is just the same as this other LD VSS thing up here. That patch cable I originally had plugged into this one down here, and again, it's identical, but it doesn't go in here. This one does go back into the CD player. The patch cable goes up here on this one, which again is very similar, right? That same sort of style of plug there. It plugs right into that, and then that is going to go into the back of the new head unit. And I'll show you that here in a second. So we took the display one to the yellow. We've got the LDVSS patch cable onto the other cable that comes out from behind the monitor. Now you may be wondering, what about these two? So this one here is for your clock. So the small one goes back into the clock, which we'll plug in when we put the new head unit in. This one though goes into the back of your aircon controls. So that one on the right there is where that one goes. And then that one on the left is, if you remember, we had this other harness that was just loose. This essentially plugs into that left side of that, and then also here on the back of the face of your CD player. So these two seem to be connected by this cable. So again, when you're uninstalling this stuff, you're going to notice, hey, this is just loose, right? That is because what we're going to do is, as we piece this back together, we're going to connect essentially your air controls to your CD player here, and that's what makes those two talk. So then again, coming over here, then there's this gray one up here in the top. You've got another little like sort of gray one down there. There's a pink one at the bottom, and then there's this little white one down there. Now there is a port back here that is empty, and if I remember right, that was empty when we unplugged everything in the first place. So there's nothing to go into there. I'm pretty sure I've got everything plugged in. On this side, again, the two coming out of your new harness, you've got this little gray one, and then there's a smaller white one right down there that's OEM. So this one down here is OEM, this one up here is OEM. These are the two new ones from your new harness that are now plugged into the OEM ones. And then that's pretty much it. So now at this point, what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually put the CD player back in, the actual physical CD player, just so it's out of the way and everything's plugged in and kind of up out of the way. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on the top part, and we're gonna plug these two into the back of it, plus this LDVSS cable, and I believe that's everything. And then at that point, I'm going to see about testing it. It makes me a little nervous because I don't want to kick on a light, but I will let you know if that does that. But I'd like to test it before I get everything back together. Although I may go ahead and do the other two pieces here too, just so they're connected, because I worry that it's not going to work anyways because those aren't plugged in. So I guess I kind of have to put it all back together. So again, this is why I want to share this with you guys so you can see this exact thought process. I am going to go ahead and put all this stuff back together. The only other question mark for me is, you know, I plugged this thing in via the USB down here, and it seems to have an audio like 3.5mm port. And one of the main things coming out of this main harness, you've got a USB, you've got a couple of USBs. So I believe you could use these for like charging stuff or plugging in, you know, external devices to the new head unit from externally, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm probably going to hide these in the center console. But one of these two are the USBs, but then another one that's really long here is actually like a 3.5mm audio cable, and that says audio output. So I'm going to plug this into that box, I believe, because this is really long. So I'm thinking this must go out to that thing for the USB. So at the very least, I'm going to run it out there so that I can test it. And, you know, if I don't need it, I don't need it. But then at least I don't have to tear the whole dash apart again. I'm being strong for you guys and brave, but I'm kind of scared. So let me put this all back together here. Just kind of the last thing, because it's going to be really difficult to show you, so I'm just going to verbally say it here, is I'm going to put the new head unit up here. I'm going to plug this into it, the LDVSS. These two harnesses go into it. And then that should be it for the center console. And then don't forget about your clock plug, right? Because the clock is now part of that main sort of top piece. And then I'm going to put that in there. And then I'm going to put, you know, the aircon controls up here and plug this harness into the back of it and plug the loose harness into the other side of it. And then once that's up there, then I'm going to have this CD player back in here too. And then I'm going to put the CD player face on, and I'm going to plug that last harness into that. And then I think I should be able to test it. So I'm just going to have everything kind of hanging loose, but I'm going to have everything connected, and we'll see what happens. So bear with me. One more quick note here is you're going to have this big mass of cables. So what I kind of did was I routed it down through the middle here. So in between the air conditioner ports, I guess you could call them, the holes where the air is going to run through. And then there's a big empty section back in the back here. So I kind of pushed them all down into the back there. And again, then I'm going to push this CD player back in there, make sure that fits. And then I'm going to try and get this thing to actually sit in there. But all three cables, the LDVSS and then the two big white harnesses, are connected to this thing. Then I've got to connect this to my aircon controls, and then connect the aircon controls to the CD player, and then everything should be reconnected. And then I do have this audio cable sort of run down under the CD player, and I'm going to run it right down here through the center console so that it can plug into that box back here, and I think we'll be in good shape. Okay, so I'm most of the way done now, but I am realizing a couple of things. And so I just wanted to call these out because in their instructional video, they don't really show you how to actually wire it. They get to the end and they kind of plug a couple harnesses in, and then magically it's working. And there haven't been any other videos on this thing. So what I want to point out is that you've got this thing that says SIM here. You've got Wi-Fi. You've got GPS and 4G, right? All this stuff. If you wanted, my thought here, and I could be wrong, post up in the comments if I am, is that this is all like if you wanted this radio to run independently of your phone, let's say, right? Like let's say that you wanted to truly have like a SIM card so that you could have cell reception in your head unit itself, right? I will always use this as CarPlay. So as I'm thinking about this, I don't think I care about SIM or GPS or 4G. This would all be, again, if you are going to use this thing as its own dedicated device, right? If you weren't going to connect a CarPlay phone to it to run CarPlay, then you could put a SIM card in it. So to show you what that looks like here. There's the plug for it, and then the end that matches that is in the end of this little guy that says SIM on it. So that plug matches that SIM card thing. And then if you open this, I realize that if you actually open up this thing here, there's a spot for a SIM card in there. So you could potentially get a SIM card, put it in this little thing, plug it into that SIM slot, and then you could turn this thing into like its own LTE device, right? You could throw a SIM card in here, make this thing its own have its own ability to connect to cell towers. It's kind of the same with GPS and 4G and all that stuff. I think I'm just going to skip it. So, again, if you wanted to not ever connect a phone, if you literally wanted your car to have its own GPS signal, this is an antenna for that. You've got a thing here for, actually, this is the GPS. This is, I think, is for 4G. So if you had a SIM card in here and you wanted to get 4G on your radio, you could put this in. If you were going to do that, you need the SIM card, which is this thing. And then if you wanted GPS built into the head unit again, then you could wire this thing. So what I think from a simplicity standpoint, same with this microphone, I believe I won't need the microphone because I just plan to use stock functionality. Like there's already a mic in the car. There's already all this stuff. All that I'm doing is simply plugging this display essentially into the existing car's cords. So, that harness that I'll show you here in a second, that contains this stuff. This is the LDVS, whatever that is, that you have to put a patch into, and I'll show you that on the inside of the car as well. This is the only one right here that I'm not 100% sure on, but there may be a stock harness that goes into this, so I'm going to check it. All right, guys, so wanted to give you a couple of last-minute tips. So obviously, it is all back together now. To put it back together, you just go in the reverse order, right? You just literally follow the instructions that I gave you at the beginning. Go back down the stack. Remember that you got to plug in your clock. Remember that there is another cord that comes out of the middle that plugs into the left side behind your aircon controls. And then on the right side, there's that sort of loose cable that was only connected from this console down to this one. So you do need to connect that to the back, kind of run it down along the side and plug it into the back of the CD player face. And then other than that, it's just putting all your screws back in, right? The 5 up here, there's a couple down here, a couple down here further. You do have to put these side leather pieces on before you can put this center console in. So again, just the reverse order of what we just did. But here are my tips for you. So in figuring out the configuration of this stuff, I had a couple of issues, and I'm going to show you what that is. One is, if you're not super familiar with Android units, this is going to be real basic if you are, but if you're not, when I got into, for instance, say the backup camera. So I was going into apps, I was playing around, and I hit like 360 view. Now it's now saying can't do that, and that's because of a setting that I changed. But originally it was letting me into this, and once I got into it, I couldn't get out. There's no back button or anything like that. As you just saw me do though a second ago, when you swipe down from the top on an Android device, say like an iPad or something, right? Then you can sort of get back to your home. So then I went there and I hit home. So if you ever get stuck in a menu somewhere and you can't go back, just like an Android tablet or something, you can always just pull down from the top and then you can hit home, and that will take you back out to your main menu. So one thing that I do want to point out is that when you go to apps here, it takes you to this other screen where you've got some apps. One of those apps is called Instructions, and this is actually just like an instruction manual specifically for this head unit. So this is really helpful. If you can't find things, this will talk about everything from videos to music to how to play things, all kinds of stuff. But again, like right now, this kind of looks like I'm stuck, right? So if you're not familiar with Android, you don't know that you got to pull down from that and hit the home button to go back. But so Instructions is pretty useful. That's helpful. Phone link is important too, and I'll get to that here in a second. That is how you connect your CarPlay. But so to do that first, before you do that, you need to go to Bluetooth, and then you need to find your phone, and just like anything else, you need to connect. So I hit this green connect button here, found my iPhone. It popped up like a pin or something. I think the pin was like 4321 or 1234 or 0000. I think it actually tells you that in the instruction manual. So if you need to find that, go check the instruction manual. But then once my phone was connected, then it was a piece of cake. Then I went to apps and I went to phone link. And then the first time it asks you to like sync it and follow some instructions. And once I did that, then now it just automatically connects. When I get in the car, this automatically connects. It pulls right up and it works great. And it's beautiful. It's on this giant screen, right? So one thing that's a little confusing is you have multiple settings. You have this setting down here, which takes you basically into like your Android settings, but these are slightly different. So one tip that I'll give you is if you go into this gear on the bottom left-hand corner here, and you scroll down to About Device, this is different in here. So you have this little gear over here. When you hit that gear, what you can do is you can type 4, and hit OK, and that resets the device. So as you just saw, it sort of hard refreshes it. So it turns it off and then it turns itself back on. So if you make changes, so like I'm gonna show you here in a second how I got my cameras to sync up. So I did get all 4 cameras, my surround view cameras to sync up. To get that to work though, you do have to make a change to sort of your settings, and then you need to refresh it. And so to do that again, so see right now you can see this is connecting to Bluetooth and it's automatically taking me back. That's my car screen there, which I'll show you in a second. My hood is open right now, so that is why that's showing me that. It's showing me that the hood's open, which is great, thanks. But so again, to get into the settings to refresh your device, it's this gear in the bottom left corner. Scroll down to About Device, and then hit that gear, type the number 4 in there and hit OK, and that will refresh your device and it will save all of your new settings. Now to get your cameras to work, where you have to go is, you go to Apps and you go to Car Info. Okay, when you get in here, this top one says General Settings, and then you've got Rear Camera Type. Now for my 2015 Infiniti Q70, it was this top one called Aftermarket Rear Camera. I tried original rear camera. I tried a bunch of these other settings. I could not get it to work. I was getting like a green screen or a staticky screen. I reached out to their support and they were super fast, super great. Within like a day, they got back to me and they said, okay, if you have OEM cameras, use this aftermarket rear camera. I know that doesn't make a ton of sense. That's why I was on original rear camera, thought that that would make it work. But this very top option in here on this CarpuTech aftermarket rear camera is the one that you want to use to get your cameras to work. And just to show you that this works here, I'll go back and I'm going to show you. So my car is on, but not on. It's turned on. But if I put it in reverse here, then it pops up. Now, one thing that I've noticed, and I just communicated with them about this, and I will let you guys, I'll put an update in the comments or something. You'll notice that there's this like sort of aftermarket line that's over top of all my cameras. So all my other cameras work and the dynamic lines are still there. Let me get this out of park. But that line goes over top of it. So I did message them because I have to imagine that that is somewhere in settings. And again, I will comment down below in a comment on this video or update the description with where you find that. I have not been able to find that yet, but I'm sure you've got to be able to turn that off. But so aside from that one little thing, it's been really great. And as you can see, I mean, this thing looks really nice. Like, I mean, it looks stock. You've got your stock clock in here. You reuse your same sort of air con controls and those all work fine. They all fit in here perfectly. So everything on that side works great. Everything from the music side works great. So one more thing to show you is if you want to get into your OEM controls, that is what Car Device is. So when you get into Car Device, I did find a setting that allowed me to make this full screen, which it stretches it a little bit, but the alternative is it's like half screen or 2/3 screen, and you get some weird info over here, which I didn't really care for a whole lot. So I basically made mine full screen. But play around with the settings, right? There's tons of stuff you can do. Now, one thing I will mention is this looks like it's touchscreen, but if you touch it, it goes away. So you can't actually control these from the touchscreen, but all your controls down below still work. So like if you hit info, it's going to take you to your info screen. If you use your little bar or your little scroller thing here, it works just fine. You just want to use your buttons down below here instead of using the touchscreen, which I'm pretty sure maybe you had to do before, actually. I don't remember now at this point. It's been so long since I really messed with this thing that I haven't really paid a ton of attention. But so everything still works. You just got to use your sort of manual controls down here for that part of it. But that was what my main concern was am I going to lose all of the functionality of the stock, information? Like, am I going to lose my air control? Am I going to use that? But see, now watch, if I hit the air control, if I hit aircon, oh wait, we got to turn the car on. We're on ACC. So now I've actually turned the car on, and if I hit like air control, like look, it pops up there. When I'm in car mode, like it shows me all of the OEM sort of functions here. If though I go out, let's say, and I go to my Bluetooth in here through phone link, now if I hit my air controls up, you see how this bar pops up at the bottom. So it actually pops up and it displays your stuff. When you use it, it will tell you what your AC is, what your direction is. So if I, mess with my settings for this, if I change, my little settings for where I've got the air pointing, it will actually show you what's happening down at the bottom. So it does actually display even when you're in CarPlay mode, which is really cool. Like I was kind of worried about that I wouldn't know what my air is at, what my fan is doing, any of that stuff. But you got this fan with the number next to it that shows you that over here. You've got your direction, you've got whether it's on AC or heat, recirc, all that stuff is showing over here. So it does maintain those controls even when you're in CarPlay, which is really cool. All right, guys, so that will do it for the CarpuTech install in my 2015 Infiniti Q70. I hope that was super helpful for you. I tried to document as much as possible. I tried to really give you all the info, step-by-step, how to install the thing. The couple little things that I had, which I think are going to be very typical with these kind of aftermarket Chinese radios, is just figuring out the settings, figuring out where to do it. I may release like an update one down the road. I'm going to use this a little bit. I just got this installed. I've been playing with it in my garage, but I haven't even driven the car since I got it in yet. So I will, use it for a little while, and then I'll probably make like an update video down the road. So if you guys are watching this now and you have other specific questions, or you want to know specific things, just hit me up in the comments down below and let me know what to include in the next follow-up video. But again, that will do it for this video. If you want one, I will put a link in the description down below. If I've got a coupon code, I'll try and include that as well. I don't know if they're going to give me one or not, but if they do, I will put that down there. As always, check the links in the description down below. I've got an Instagram account. I'd love for you guys to follow along over there. If you want to see pictures and stuff of the car, I'm constantly posting pictures of it. These Q70s are super underrated, so feel free to follow along over there. Post up in the comments below if you've got questions, and make sure to click that subscribe button if you want more Infiniti content. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.